Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Luka Doncic dropped a triple-double in his first matchup against the Mavericks. Also, Jonathan Allen has requested a trade from the Commanders, and the 49ers should let Brock Purdy test the trade market.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Luka Doncic revenge game was really hyped up, and it led up to all that hype. Here to talk about that with me is Isaac Harris from Locked On Mavericks. And Isaac, the Mavs didn't let Luka go off in the points department, only 19. Did have a triple-double. Kyrie Irving had a great performance, 8-point loss for Dallas. They had a fight in the second half, but they just weren't close enough to get the job done. For you, do you think that the game had everything that you were expecting it to have? Luka was jawing towards the Mavs bench, Nico Harrison in the building. How did you feel like the game went based off of your expectation?
Yeah, I mean, when you play Luka Doncic, which is super weird, going to be on the other side of this now. When you play Luka, you basically have to pick one of two options. Are you going to, dare the teammates to hit the shots and try to take Luka out of the game? Or are you going to stay home on the shooters and let Luka put up his, 35 to 40 points in a game? It felt kind of predictable that Dallas was going to go into this game and saying, all right, we're going to dare the Rui Hachimuras and the Austin Reeves to beat us and to try to, prevent the onslaught from Luka. And that's what they did. I mean, Kid threw everything in the first quarter they played zone. They did a box and one. They did doubles, blitzes. They did everything on defense against Luka. And he still had a triple-double, which, Luka's going to get his. But it just, the injuries, the bad games from Max Christie, and, arguably the worst game from P.J. Washington in his Mavs career so far, it was just too much to overcome for Dallas.
And that's where I think it's so hard to judge this Mavs team right now, considering the front court losses, and you're expecting those guys to come back, or at least most of them, in some level of a timeline. But until that happens, you're working shorthanded, especially in the front court. So it's hard to judge the full extent of what this Mavs team can be at full strength. But that doesn't mean that some of the guys that are playing right now aren't going to be in a fully healthy Mavs rotation. So you look at this game, Isaac, you look at other games that have been post Luka Doncic. Looking ahead, what do you want to see from some of these rotation guys? You mentioned Max Christie, P.J. Washington, some of these others. Dwight Powell did come back, but obviously when a fully healthy Mavs squad is out there, he's probably not getting minutes. Who do you want to see step up in these moments? Because the question is, where are you going to get that offense now outside of Kyrie Irving? Klay Thompson had some vintage Klay moments in this game, but I think you need some others to carry some of that load as well.
Yeah, everything evolves around the injuries for them. Their ceiling is determined on this March 6th date that we're going to get injury updates from Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. Like you said, Dwight Powell is the fourth center on this team. So Kessler Edwards started this game. So, if that tells you anything, he's a two-way guy. So, they're just, it's super tough for them right now with the bigs. But, you're looking at the wings, when you have this type of injury situation, you're forcing everybody to kind of play out of position a little bit, or asking them to play a little bit more than the role that they were brought into. So you're asking a little bit more from like a Max Christie than what would normally be asked of him, probably. Even Klay Thompson, a little bit more playmaking at times. It's like, he kind of signed up just to come here and shoot some open shots and threes. But yeah, it's kind of like the development of Max Christie. Let's see what he looks like. PJ, I hate that he had the game that he did, PJ Washington, against the Lakers tonight, because he's been incredible this season when he's healthy. He's kind of taken another step forward. And I think it's seeing PJ, seeing Max Christie, how they can kind of develop some more playmaking alongside. Kyrie's awesome. So that's the key, I think, for them.
And now we mentioned all that Luka Doncic did do in this game. From Dallas's perspective, what did the Mavs miss from what Luka brought to them for so many years in tonight's performance?
Just from a roster construction standpoint, outside of him being a superstar, is just another guy who can handle the basketball. You see it tonight. it's, for so long, it's been Kyrie and Luka and this 2-man game of, these two creators that good luck game planning for that. Well, now it's just kind of just Kyrie, and whenever Dinwiddie feels like it's just Dinwiddie time, but it's like you kind of like they're just missing another guy who can create. But on top of that, it's you're seeing in the fourth quarter that Kyrie is so clutch, but he's having to carry so much throughout the games that's taking a toll on him in the fourth. Fourth is typically Luka's time. Luka is an MVP guy, so there's no replacing Luka. It's a massive hole to fill. Even Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, he's just a completely different type of player, than Luka. So their whole look, roster, schemes, and everything shifts now without a Luka Doncic.
Now, this thing heads back to Dallas on April 9th, and we know the electricity, the atmosphere for tonight, based off of this and based off of we know how passionate Mavs fans feel about this whole ordeal. A month out from that, or at least a little more than a month, what are you expecting in that game?
Oh, man, there's already, grumblings of people trying to organize some things for that game in arena. The Mavericks organization has tried to put a damper on things in the arena as far as, signs or T-shirts and stuff, and trying to keep it about basketball. There'll be a lot of stuff outside the arena, some demonstrations with that probably. And it's just going to be an emotional it felt that way a little bit tonight, but we're going to feel it. Feels like 5 times more in Dallas. It's just a weird time for Mavericks fans watching this team and like rooting for your guys, but Luka's like one of your guys too. And it's just like Luka coming back, and it's going to feel like an away game because there's going to be so many, thousands of people are going to be rooting for Luka. And that's the Mavs at the same time. So it's just, I think the best way I can describe it is just weird. It's just one of the weirdest situations. And honestly, something you just can't fully prepare for until you're in it with a moment like that.
You can stay up to date on the Dallas Mavericks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Mavs on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Jonathan Allen doesn't want to be in Washington anymore. Before we get to that, a top 5 team went down in men's college basketball. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Wednesday night features a ton of interesting NBA action. The Celtics are 4-point road favorites against the Pistons. The Raptors, 9.5-point dogs in Indiana. And the largest line of the night, Oklahoma City favored by 17 at Brooklyn. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Number 3, Florida Gators nearly completed a massive comeback on the road against Georgia on Tuesday night, but fell short.
This felt very on par with Florida. Slow first half was brutal. Again, you can't keep giving up 50 points in the first half. It's great that you could score 48 in the second half, but you can't keep giving up 51 in the first half. That's just not stuff that you can do and win. That's just not stuff you can do and win. It's just not acceptable. Not going to be a thing there. I will say this because I'm sure the chat's going to mention it. The officiating was bad, right? I think everybody can acknowledge that, or at least everybody here can acknowledge that. Officiating was bad. However, I will say this as well. I don't care. I don't blame games on officiating because my thought process is always play well enough so that officiating doesn't matter.
The Cavaliers absolutely throttled the Magic in Orlando.
This is Philip Rossman-Wright, the host of Locked On Magic here at the Kia Center as the Orlando Magic fall to the Cleveland Cavaliers 122-82. And the score, of course, really does say it all. The Orlando Magic fall by 40 points. They give up a 19-5 three-point edge. And it's just simply too much for this Magic team to overcome. Look, Orlando can defend with the best of them, but it is really, really hard when the math is working against you like that. And that's the way it's been all year. But it never should get this bad. And the Magic just kind of proved that they're not in the same weight class as the Cavs. They might have been last year in the playoff series, but Cleveland's obviously taken a leap, and Orlando has obviously stalled out and regressed in many ways. It could be because of the injuries, it could be because of a number of reasons, but the Magic have lost confidence in their offense, and they're just not playing anywhere near the level to compete with the teams that, yes, they're going to eventually see, hopefully, in the playoffs and in the postseason. The Magic, obviously, one loss doesn't kill the season, doesn't end anything, but this one is about as embarrassing as it can get. On national TV, Orlando goes 0-6 on their national TV appearances this year. Really only competitive in one. Maybe they can count the OKC game, but the Magic got to be better. They got to find their way, and they just weren't in it at all tonight.
The Suns and Grizzlies scored nearly 300 combined points in an overtime clash.
That was a basketball game that Memphis Grizzlies and Phoenix Suns fans just witnessed, especially on the offensive end. Some high-level shot making, some high-level playmaking, and a big Grizzlies win in overtime over the Phoenix Suns. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies. It was good for Memphis to see their Grizzlies in person once more after a couple of weeks away, thanks to the All-Star break and a road trip. A 5-game homestand kicked off tonight, and Memphis showed out. The Grizzlies, led by Ja Morant. Not his best shooting performance, but he got to the charity stripe at an elite level, created offense for his teammates, especially in the overtime period. Ja, Dez, and Jaren Jackson Jr. all contributed, but it was Jalen Wells continuing to look like a Rookie of the Year candidate. It was Brandon Clark making hustle play after hustle play, beautiful rebound after beautiful defensive effort. This team was locked in, and they got the job done in one of the better games of the season to this point.
And the Celtics squeaked by the Raptors.
Boston Celtics get 6 3-pointers from Derek White, and they hold off the hard-charging Toronto Raptors in a game Toronto probably thought they could steal from Boston, considering that they were missing 4 rotation players. They came into the game knowing there would be no Holiday, Horford, or Luke Cornett. Kristaps Porzingis was a late scratch right before the game, so they had to piece this together. They went deep into their bench. Jason Tatum was out there with some very unique lineups. One stretch with J.D. Davison, Baylor Shireman, Neemias Queta, and Sam Hauser. That's not typically something you'll see in a winning game, but he did pretty well. 19 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds for Tatum. But the story of the game was the late 3-pointers by Derek White to hold off the Raptors. Peyton Pritchard, who scored 20 points, had a big offensive rebound. Jaylen Brown, who finished the game with 24 points despite some of the knee/leg issues. And Celtics just getting contributions wherever they could for however long they could. They started Torrey Craig. It didn't go well, but those are important minutes for the Celtics to get some film, to get him used to playing in these games. So credit to the Raptors for some tough defense. They really, really played hard, but the Celtics just held them off. Now they move on to Detroit, hopefully much healthier against a Pistons team who's won 7 in a row.
Two-time Pro Bowler Jonathan Allen has requested a trade away from the Washington Commanders. Locked On Commanders host David Harrison shares his thoughts on the news.
Jonathan Allen requested the opportunity to go seek out trade opportunities. The Washington Commanders, specifically General Manager Adam Peters, allowing that opportunity to be pursued, to be sought after, allowing John Allen to go out there and see what's out there on the open market for him, and allowing his agent, Blake Baratz, to do everything that he needs to do. Adam Peters speaking very highly of John Allen's agent to us on Tuesday. And this news came out before Adam Peters' press conference at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine on Tuesday, and that's not insignificant. Typically, and every team is different, right? Every executive is different. But for the most part, most NFL teams keep this kind of stuff kind of under wraps until after they do their press conferences here. Now, we've talked about this leading into Scouting Combine week. This is essentially the beginning of the offseason, right? Like, there's certainly conversations being had here and there at events, the Senior Bowl, stuff like that. But you have all 32 GMs, all 32 head coaches, all 32 teams are represented here in Indianapolis for this week. So this is really where you start to see some of the wheeling and dealing happening. And I would say that a lot of the offseason trades you end up seeing take place in the National Football League likely start here in Indianapolis, or at least they get really serious while here in Indianapolis. And this is just one of them. So the fact that the Washington Commanders, and I believe, just my impression, this isn't official, this isn't confirmed, but my impression is as the Washington Commanders, probably Adam Peters himself, who leaked this information to the media, that John Allen had been approved permission to go seek out a trade partner. I think that it was done on purpose, and it was done because we want to get this message out here. And the message that they wanted to get out there was, quote, this is Adam Peters' quote, I think they're always tough, is what AP said when he was asked about hearing that John Allen wanted the opportunity to seek out a trade. These kinds of decisions and things you have to come up with are always tough, right? And with John, who's been a great player as a Commander, as a football teamer, and a Redskin, he's been a great person for this franchise for a long time. So you have to weigh everything. And we looked at it internally and, okay, what decision do we want to make that we think is best for the team? But also, you want to do what's best for that player. So those are tough conversations to have, but you always want to have them civilly. And we have, and his agent's been really good with us and look forward to coming to a resolution, end quote. So a common theme in the questions I've been getting from outsiders is, and those are Commanders fans, is why is this happening? So to answer that, I think we got to look at two parts of this conversation. I want to turn the coin now to the John Allen side of this whole thing. And I did reach out to his agent, Blake Baratz, the person that Adam Peters was speaking so highly of, Jonathan Allen's agent, just to ask for clarification. I wanted some clarification, some insight as to what he and John want to find here. What is that they're actually out there looking for? Wanted to see if I could get a little bit of clarification while we provide this coverage of this, because I think it's important that the context of this is as accurate as possible. Now, haven't heard anything back. Not really 100% surprised. With that, again, it's Scouting Combine week. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of busy people, a lot of moving pieces. I know Blake is actually going to be here in Indianapolis this week, but like AP said, the two sides are in constant contact. Again, not really surprised not to hear back, because there's also a part of this where if you're the agent, and especially if you're the player, you don't want this being handled in the court of public opinion any more than it's already going to be, right? Obviously, we're here talking about it in the court of public opinion. Everybody else is talking about it. But when you add fuel, sometimes that causes the fire to go in a direction you don't want it to. A well-intentioned question from someone like me with a well-intentioned answer from the agent or the player could be misconstrued, could be taken a certain kind of way, right? So totally get why those people or why those circumstances may not be met with responses. Now, for Allen, who told me directly after the NFC Championship game that he wants to be here, certainly things can change, and it's been a little while since that game. But the last words we got from the man himself was that he wants to be here. Most likely to me, given those words, given the context of the situation, without any additional clarification from John or his agent at this time, I think it's about security. It's about security. Every NFL player wants two things. They want to win championships and they want security. Those are the two things that they want more so than anything else, especially coming off of a season where John Allen just suffered what was thought to be a season-ending pec injury against the Baltimore Ravens. You want that security. He's got 1 year left on his current contracts. None of that money on the table is guaranteed. He's got a roster bonus of $352,000, a workout bonus of $500,000, and certainly to most of us, that's a lot of money. That's nearly $1 million right there. But for Jonathan Allen, that's very little compared to his total earning potential and what he probably feels like he's worth. Now, his base salary is $15.5 million a season, according to Spot Track. So that is what he is projected to earn if he plays the entirety of the 2025 season under this contract. But again, none of that is guaranteed. None of that is protected. If he gets injured the first day of training camp, he'll walk away from 2025 with less than $900,000, over 30 years old, without a contract moving him into the future. So I think that's got to be a very large part of this, if not the entire driving force.
You can stay up to date all year on the Washington Commanders by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Commanders on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. San Francisco 49ers afford to let Brock Purdy test the market. Locked On NFL host Tony Wiggins and, well, myself discuss the positives and negatives of letting Purdy discover his value.
See, when it's been quarterbacks, KO, they haven't had to hit the market because their agents would come in and just stack their contract based on what the last guy did. And it allows them to reset it. So that is the market. The market is whether you're better than that guy or not, it's your turn. So I agree with this sentiment, but I kind of disagree with it. It'll be really, really weird to see if the 49ers allow Purdy to do that, only to know what they're going to do is match whatever somebody else does. And if people realize that that's what they're doing, well, they'll give him some astronomical number, whether or not they're really interested in doing it or not, and force the 49ers to that's why you just got to be proactive. You got to know the value that he has to your franchise, and you have to. He's been in your organization every single day. It's up to you to decide what he means to you and what he doesn't mean to you.
If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we are here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what can we expect from the NFL Combine? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.